have the great privilege and honor to be with Heidi Dening. How are you?
I'm very well, Si. Thank you very much for having me on this amazing event that you have all put together. It's
You're
incredible.
you're you're most welcome. The honor is and pleasure is ours all around. I really appreciate how quickly we were able to connect and kind of get this conversation happening.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to kind of share with the world who you are and what you're about, and we can dive in deeper.
Thank you. Yes, my name's Heidi Dening. I live in Sydney, Australia. You could probably tell a little bit about that from my accent. Um, I'm a keynote speaker on stage and online, which is the new way of doing it, of course. I'm a best-selling author and an experienced educator. I really believe I've got education in my DNA. In fact, I just love to watch people transform from education, and I have a great belief that we all should be able to access great education. But I suppose right now I feel like I'm on a bit of a crusade to build the resilience in organisations and their people, so they can navigate better out of these very stressful and changeable and uncertain times that we are all experiencing.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Heidi. And of course, you have the backdrop of the narrative and the different themes. And as you kind of look at the landscape, especially from the preview of education and the potential of it, if you will,
Yeah.
what's your perspective and what are you seeing?
Well, look, I think certainly what we've experienced here in Australia is very different to what you have experienced in the United States. We've, when I say only had 102 deaths, of course, they're devastating, and the ripple effect has been monstrous for everyone around those people. But that number is so small comparatively to other places in the world. So we feel very grateful here that that has been the case. So I think, and this is what's so important, there is no blanket perspective on what has gone on. It's all very different depending on which country you live in, which society you are in, which suburb you live in even, and what lens you have on your life. And I think that's something that's very important, because we can't make blanket things that are right for everybody right now. And I think through education and through this kind of understanding and compassion, that we are all very different. We know that some people have absolutely been thriving and doing extremely well over the last 3 months, where right to the other end of the spectrum, we've people who've lost their jobs, their businesses and their lives. So what has gone on is incredibly different, and I think we just have to be very compassionate to the fact that it is different for everybody.
Well said, very well said. And of course, we look at the spectrum of themes all the way from uncertainty and risk and complexity to future proving and resilience and all those facets. What insights would you share with the world, if you will, relative to that whole spectrum of aspects?
Well, look, I just believe that we have to all be very creative right now in all areas. We have to be creative in the tech that we're using. We're all having to learn all new skills around technology for us to be able to continue, just like we're doing from distant parts of the world. All of a sudden we can connect because of that. We have to be creative in our business models. What used to work is not working anymore for most people. So we have to be able to find a way to change it up and adapt to this new environment. We have to be creative in the way we approach the people within our organizations. And I've been thinking about this a little bit today, Si, since we started this conversation. And I've always had this belief that if you put your people first, the profits will follow. Mm-hmm. Now, in our country, our health has been put first. And we closed the borders really quickly. Lockdown was done very, very quickly. Everything shut down. The health of our country, the personal health for everyone, was put before the profits and the economy, of course. And that is broken. But it's a very interesting thing that for the very first time in decades, hundreds of years,
Hmm.
that the health of people is being put before the profits that can be made. And I have found that very interesting. And I hope, of course, the economy needs to reboot across the globe. But I think there's something that we can all learn from the fact that when you do put the health of people first, other things can thrive.
Excellent. Excellent. And Heidi, I know a lot of your work and your book and what have you really focuses on self-leadership and kind of that foundation. And please correct me if I've missed something, because as I mentioned, I have it on order and I'm still waiting for my copy at this point. But I would love for you to kind of help us sort of put in context self-leadership within the world that we are experiencing now, as well as you look forward.
Yeah, well, look, self-leadership to me is having the ability and the determination to influence ourselves, to influence our own lives, to sit in the driver's seat of our lives and tap into our experiences and our skills and our confidence and our motivation to steer our life in a positive direction. And I think when there is so much chaos going on right now, and it's very easy to get like just drawn into the rabbit holes of fear and panic and, oh hell, how is my life ever going to be okay again? This is when self-leadership is so crucial, that for us to be able to really say, okay, what is it that I have some control on or over? Because that's all I can do. Everything else is out of my control. And right now we need calm, kind, smart, and visionary people. And I think to be calm, kind, smart, and visionary, you have to have embraced this belief of self-leadership.
I really appreciate the way you're describing that, because the word belief strikes me as core. If you don't believe it,
Yeah,
that's fundamental.
it is fundamental, without a doubt.
And I definitely appreciate, likewise, the word about control is really asking ourselves, what can we be in control of at even a micro, very much a micro level before anything else.
Definitely. Yeah, and I mean, I talk about this when I'm talking about, when there is even outside of this kind of COVID time, when we're amongst so much pressure in our work environments, our professional lives, and the various responsibilities that we have across our whole lives. We've been bogged down with these pressures, but what are the things that we can have some influence over? And I call them structured self-care sanctuaries, and which is a dumb expression for somebody to put together when you've got a lisp, but that's what it's called. And it's about, setting up your morning with good rituals in the morning, because you can have control over that. And setting up your evenings with some good rituals to make a buffer between your work day and your rejuvenation time during sleep. You do have control over that. So this is how we can turn all this pressure that we're feeling, the panic and the fear and the uncertainty, and tap into what we have influence on for ourselves. So that kind of flips itself into performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very well said. And I think there's a great wisdom in what you're saying, because it's not simply believing something, but it's truly transforming that belief into rituals and manifesting them. And that makes all the difference at that point.
It does. You have to be proactive about it. You've got to make the decision to say, okay, it's one thing to know what I need to do, but I have to actually do it. I've got to take the action. And I've got to be habitual about it. I can't just do it once a week. This is an everyday thing for you to be able to reap the rewards of it. And they don't have to be monstrous, major things. I talk about, micro changes that you can make. And these tiny little micro changes that you put in day after day after day, it's like compound interest in the bank. It builds.
Yeah.
And what you get from that is truly remarkable.
Very well said. And I likewise, I'm a firm believer in the micro changes that can manifest in a greater impact. So I really appreciate it. It resonates very deeply. Heidi, I absolutely love the title of your book. I mean, I very, very frankly, you mentioned transforming pressure into performance, chaos into clarity, and rage into resilience. I would love just to hear you share with the world kind of, I'm going to call them pillars, what those three pillars or those three tenets really offer us, especially in this age that we're living and moving forward.
Yeah, well, look, that pressure into the performance certainly is around having those kind of structures and habits and rituals so that you can have some influence over the times of your day that will help you to focus and concentrate when you need to, but rest and rejuvenate when you have to. And I think that's what that really allows us to do. And when you can do those two things, that's when you can perform at your best. There is no doubt. The chaos into clarity component, I talk about having the clarity to understand what are the curveballs in your life compared to the cannonballs in your life. Curveballs are things, unfortunately, we often all have to endure. There are things that are always going to hit us. In our professional life, there'll be mergers and acquisitions and redundancies and cranky clients and annoying colleagues, and you've just got to deal with those things. In our personal lives, there'll be aging parents, little young ones, loss of loved ones, all of these things we can't control. But when you've got the clarity of whether they are a curveball or whether they're a cannonball, and how you respond to those two things is very different. So when I'm talking about being able to transform chaos into clarity, it starts with having some perspective of these events that are occurring in our lives. And I talk about being the boss of your thoughts rather than the slave to them. So how are you taking ownership of how you're seeing them rather than how you're reacting, just, off the ball? And we often we'll all react, but it's having that acknowledgement. Oh shit, that I'm reacting to that. Let's flip that and turn it into ownership, and extract the good, extract the clarity, so that you can move forward in a positive way.
Excellent. And rage to resilience. Any sort of further elaboration there?
Yeah, look, that particular part, and it's the, I suppose, the backstory to the book, where unfortunately, about 5 years ago, I survived a violent crime. And I had terrible PTSD, I had crippling insomnia, I had physical pain from my injuries, I had a lot of emotional pain from all the deep stress of it. And what happened with that was that I just hung on to it. I couldn't let it go. The rage that had gone on from that event, I just kept inside of me, I suppose. I mean, I did have therapy and everything, but I hadn't let it go. And it took 3 years. I had some investigative surgery because I'd been very unwell for a while, and nothing was showing up any reason why that was the case. And once they opened me up, they found that I had stage 4 endometriosis on 5 of my organs.
Sorry.
And in fact, my appendix, even though that's, a useless organ, was so rotted, they had to remove it. But what it made me realize was that I had internalized my rage so much, it was actually rotting me from the inside out. And if I didn't find a way to turn that story of rage into a story of resilience and positivity and extract some goodness from it, my physical and mental health was going to suffer for the rest of my life. So that's how that has happened.
Thank you so much for sharing that. What strikes me as, and again, I'm really looking forward to diving deeper into your work. What really strikes me, and as you describe these, is we can choose to sort of embrace a victim mentality or not embrace a victim mentality. And when we take ownership of that, and truly that self-leadership sets in, it is paradigm and world changing at that point for us individually and collectively.
Without doubt. And you're right, because like how we're dealing with something has a ripple effect on everyone around us. The people in our homes, the people in our workplaces, the people in our community. And of course, that just continues to keep going out. So it is our job to lead ourselves well, because that in fact influences a really large circle of people around us.
Most definitively. And Heidi, definitely to respect your time, any other sort of guidance or tenets that you would really love for people to embrace, especially in this time, to both contribute to themselves as well as the world around them? Anything that you'd like to offer?
Well, look, I think there's this wonderful saying that I always love to kind of come back to when I'm talking about this self-leadership, and it's, if you listen to your body and brain when it's whispering to you, you don't have to react when it's shouting at you. And I think we need to, look inside ourselves and know what we have influence on. Be very proactive what we can have influence on, and be, set up boundaries. I mean, I know it's very difficult to go have that balance of protecting ourselves from fear and panic and uncertainty, but also being aware of how this is impacting so many people around the world. But you've first got to look after yourself. And once you can continue to lead yourself and be proactive with those little micro changes, that ripple effect can actually impact hundreds of thousands of people. So start with you. Yeah.
Very well said. Very well said. Definitely want to thank you for your time and the opportunity. A tremendous conversation all around, and we look forward to hopefully having more conversations in the future. So thank you so much, Heidi.
My pleasure, Si.
Thank you.